What happens when a world-class nutritionist uses blood panels, cellular biology, and fact-based science to create and monitor healthy eating plans with supplements for her clients? Everyone wins. Welcome to Power on Your Plate with Haylie Pomroy, an educational experience that gives you both the actionable and practical tools you can use every day to get your health, weight, and life back on track.
I would like to welcome this incredible guest that I have on my podcast today. And just really, I'm standing in a place of gratitude for Melanie Parish joining me and putting power on your plate. Melanie is an author. She's a phenomenal public speaker. She is the host of the Experimental Leader podcast. She founded the Experimental Leader Academy. She's a master certified coach. She's my coach and has been for many, many years. As you guys will see in this conversation, we've gone back many moons ago and through many experiences. Melanie coaches individuals like myself, individuals from Fortune 500 companies to IT startup. It was funny, Melanie, I almost just read It Startup. She's a phenomenal author, an educator, one of my dearest friends, a mentor to me in all things from raising children to killing it in business to starting communities. And so, Melanie, I just want to welcome you and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I was so excited about this call.
I think we're going to have a lot of fun. And I think we're going to share things definitely about my experiences with you that many people don't know I've ever even had. Melanie and I go way back. Melanie, again, on a professional level, has guided me through publishing books, launching platforms, webcasts, podcasts, you name it. We've had these kind of business experiences together. And I think I'm going to talk on the personal aspect, but I think one of the reasons why the longevity and the quality of our relationship is because Melanie takes this business approach of, and her book's called Experimental Leader. And so everything is okay to try and experiment with. And from a scientific perspective, with people walking in my door, my ego realized very early on in clinical practice that everything that we do together has to be viewed from an experiment perspective. So Melanie, we're going to get into how long we've known each other and what we've been through in our life journey together. But I just kind of want to design something because we, again, have experienced a lot of kind of crazy things together. So I'm an open book. I have to be willing to go there for my clients. And if you have any questions, nothing's off the table. And if I suddenly become, I put my practitioner hat on, and I venture into something that, maybe is more designed for you and I in a clinical setting, I want you to pick like your favorite food or a safe word or something that I can know like, hey, let's save that for the office. What do you want that to be today?
Oh, I am sure I want it to be aubergine.
Oh, you mean eggplant? That just opened a ginormous can of worms. Melanie and so I actually have a publishing company called Aubergine Justine. Justine's my middle name. And that came of a panic call that I had to Melanie when I was first put on TV. And they said, that's awesome. Send us a cover of your book so we can promote it. And unbeknownst to anyone, I didn't have a book. And so, I called Melanie up and I'm like, oh my gosh, what do I do? And she says, well, let's do a book cover. And let's put coming in the fall and self-publish your own book. And I had to come up with a phenomenal publishing name. And that is how I knew that I believe that's French. Is that right, Melanie?
It is French. It is French.
French for eggplant. I want to my goal and my hope is that through our experience together, and let me just tell you candidly that, Melanie was there. Actually, Melanie, again, has been a coach to me on many levels, from financial to intellectual property. But Melanie also coached me through probably one of my most successful breakthroughs in life. And that was the birth of my daughter. And Melanie was present for that and actually poured hot water over my lower back while I was in labor. I had a water birth at home. And so, Melanie, there's kind of nothing you haven't seen or experienced it with me or in my world.
It's been a wild ride. I'm still back to that time that we put out that book cover. I think I had a graphic design company at the time, and I'm still back on that. How crazy was that to put out a cover before you wrote the book?
I'll never forget, it was on Extra TV.
Yeah,
and
I remember.
Yeah, and they asked me to be one of the extra life changers. And, you know, everybody had these phenomenal books. I went on to write the book. I went on to self-publish the book. And it's, you know, as we've all talked about, published a lot of books since then. But that was crazy. But that was really at the crux of the relationships that we have with, to me, that foster longevity in health and wellness and in well-being. And what that is being open and receptive to a solution that maybe you had never thought of before. And I know that you've watched me in clinical practice work with many clients and even family members. And so one thing that I wanted to ask you, and in the spirit of experimenting, because I'm learning every day in my clinical practice, what is like one thing that you've maybe had me suggest from a health perspective that you wish you could share with everybody? And let me say, this comes from you texting me questions and, you know, again, whether it's family or for personal reasons, and saying, gosh, I just am so grateful that I have access to you this way. What would be one thing that I'd shared with you that you go, oh, this is stuck with me?
Well, I want to just say, you know, I almost have tears in my eyes right now as I'm thinking about this long relationship that we've had.
Crazy.
I have seen you in clinical practice, you know, 4 years off and on. I live a really long way from you, so I can't see you clinically as much as I have wished. But I've had this incredible privilege of access, so that if I had a question about my kids or my mother or my father along the way, I could just text you a question and you would answer it. And I mean, I have to say, I've always tried to be so careful because I knew I could get you. I knew that you would always be so incredibly generous and kind. It's been an incredible privilege to have that. But some of the one of the coolest things. So there's two things that just pop into my mind right away. One is that I have twin 15-year-old sons who are both competitive athletes. One was a gymnast and now he's a swimmer, and the other one's been a swimmer always. Right. And one of the best, you know, things that you've helped them do, is to work on sort of what kind of optimal nutrition should they have. You know, we eat organic, we eat really healthy, we eat protein and vegetables, like we handle that. But so there's not too many people in the world that I could ask, like, how do we go to the next level of that? And I love that you've suggested 5 fruits a day. And then my sons will beg me for your phase 3 powder so they can have phase 3 powder with chocolate milk and banana. And they just love it. And it's like, they'll do it, you know, when they just want that to be in the house. And so I love that, you know, this generation of boys is using your products. So that's the first piece. That's the first one, is just, I really feel like it's been really nice to know what to tell them when they want to take their bodies to the next level. Both of them are, you know, fast and super crazy strong and don't have much fat on them. And so knowing how to help them take their bodies to the next level, it's incredibly helpful just to feel like I have an answer for them.
And I think I've known these boys since before they were born. And I think one of the things that you just said that makes me so excited is having anybody in their youth looking to put power on their plate, right? Looking to turn towards something instead of avoiding something. So when an individual comes into my office, this isn't 100% across the board, but typically, and not as much with your family, but typically when people come in, they don't have a lot of great foundational respect for the power that they can put on their plate, right? They don't view themselves maybe as an athlete or a racehorse or the most incredibly healthy individual, and they don't hold that out for themselves. And so definitely with my kids and with my clients' kids and kids that are clients of mine, I want them very early on to understand kind of how they can empower themselves and how they can take it to the next level. And with the boys and those kinds of sustained cardiovascular aerobic activities, it's really important to elevate that natural sugar in the body so that the muscle feels like it has adequate sugar storage, right? So our bodies hold on to sugar in the liver and in the muscle, in the smooth muscle. And when you're swimming like crazy or you're doing gymnastics, you have to have enough of that reserve for the body to let all of the other mechanisms work efficiently. When you shortchange it from that glycemic value or that natural sugar value, the body will go into a metabolic imbalance. And so those boys, like knowing that they have that power, that's phenomenal. So I always say don't fast before going fast. Make sure that you eat, bottom line, before you exercise. Don't grab a cup of coffee and jump on the treadmill. Don't go swim laps or be in a swim meet without eating, or, don't do a synthetic sugar like those people do those fun dips I've seen a lot at swim meets, but really nurture that muscle. So like being able to make a difference from a youth body, that's generational. They're going to be sharing that with their kids.
Well, and because of all the things I've learned from you and just, I know the power of food. Like my kids will come to me and like, we will pack them a huge lunch for on deck. Someday we'll go back to swim meets. I dream of those days right now, but like they have a huge lunch and we actually talk about like how long is the race and what will they have first?
Right.
What will they have? Sometimes they do chocolate milk for recovery. Sometimes it's like, I want them to have nuts because they're going to go do a really long race and I want something they're not going to burn through really fast. Sometimes it's fruit because I want them to have really ready carbs that are going to get them through, 50 meters. But there's a really real difference. And I know this between a 50-meter race and a 1500. And
you see this in the animal world. And I, having a degree in ag sciences, animal sciences, having, horses ourselves, there is such a difference. And we know that we feed a horse very different that's going to do, more furlongs than a quick sprint. And athletes, it's definitely performance is nutrient based and nutrient dependent. And so whatever you want out of your body, whether it's, lean muscle or a better libido, performance is based on the nutrients that you put in.
Yeah. And I have a son who's in the top 10 in Canada in, 8 or 9 events. So he's very successful in his age group. And he comes to me and says, let's walk through this. What are we going to do? And then, okay, so that was the first one. That's the one that I think is, well, and I want to also talk about just like, you talked about knowing my kids since birth. You actually helped me get pregnant and I was doing fertility treatment and all of those things. But then I had a history of having a premature baby. And you told me to eat, 4,000 calories a day and 120 grams of protein a day. And so I had, preemie twins born at 32 weeks. And my twins were the healthiest kids in the NICU. And I know it was because of those two things. I think at the time you told me that there are really good outcomes with preemies, with protein. And I was religious about that protein. And my kids never had jaundice, which is almost unheard of at 32 weeks. They were just healthy. Like they came out super healthy, no respiratory problems, nothing, even though they were born at 32 weeks. And so I'm super grateful for that as well.
Especially in that third trimester when we're working on the development of the lung and the eyes. That's why I really had you do a ton of those healthy fats. And especially right before bed, I had you do the raw nuts and seeds and the healthy fats, and why we moved the protein content up. And we added those calories through those healthy fats, avocados. I remember this like, I remember like it was yesterday. I got chills when you were talking about your delivery and having them at 32 weeks, because I was so focused on, one of the reasons why a lot of times they give women steroids in the third trimester if they're concerned with premature delivery or if they're going to do a scheduled C-section early, is because of the later development of the lung and the eyes and the vision problems that sometimes that can bring up. And I just remember as I was writing down, meal maps for you and food lists for you, I was like, the boy's eyes, and the boy's lungs. I really use food strategically and purposefully. Again, now we're talking about them, killing it in swim meets. And when they were itty bitties, we were talking about them having really healthy development so that they could thrive at 32 weeks. And that just shows, from the beginning, how incorporating targeted nutrients can change a person's life trajectory, right?
Yeah. Well, the other conversation that we had is last week.
Uh-oh. I say uh-oh because I remember the babies, and I know we've talked a lot about the boys, but I don't know what I talked about last week.
Yeah. So we were talking about supplements. Like, what's the baseline? What's the thing you do before anything else? And I guess I'm a slow learner because I've been around for 20 years. I've been in your community, but I changed my behavior this very week because of that conversation. And I'm trying a new experiment. I don't know if it's exactly what you would recommend, but I am trying a new experiment around, you said that there were, you might have to go through the things that everybody should take, but
right.
I narrowed it down to 5, mostly because I can't get shipments of your product in Canada right now easily. So I started taking a multi, which I have, Haylie Pomroy multi. I'm a horrible supplement taker, but I started taking, and I decided if I had to take a lot of them, I wasn't going to take them. So I'm taking 1 multi, 1 probiotic, 1 essential fatty acid, 1 free radical, and there's like 1 more thing, I think, or maybe I got them all. Anyway, I'm taking those. But 1 instead of 2 because it's too many pills. So I decided that was my new experiment because at least, and I have had so much energy since I started.
I know the conversation that you're talking about right now. And I got off the phone and I actually made a phone call to someone on our team. And I said, I'm really, really sad right now. And I was genuinely bummed because I felt like what a disservice I had kind of done in our relationship. and what had happened was, I did not set out to start a supplement company. I've been a clinician and a practitioner. And I think even, 10 steps back from that, I was an individual that was really hammered with a health crisis. And when that happened for me, a lot of you guys know, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder after hemorrhaging at 19, and I was diagnosed with ITP. And I did the prednisone and I did the anti-rejection drugs and Mepron, and you kind of name it, and enough steroids to lose significant function in my right kidney. I started experimenting with, although I had a lot of exposure, really, really little to natural therapies, but it was kind of like as I got older and I went away to college and I knew better and I was working as a surgical tech and I had access to, any kind of medication I wanted. And I was tired of kind of working so hard on my health. It was at that point that I just said, I need the magic pill. I need a quick fix. And I went a little more of the Western medicine route. It landed me in the hospital on 60 milligrams of prednisone, needing to be hospitalized to come down off of that med at the time. And I just started kind of searching for a different way. So for me, I went back and researched the biochemistry of everything. And I'm a total diehard supplement taker. I mean, you've been around me when I was traveling, when I was doing media. You watched me dish it out for my kids. Actually, now Grayson is the CEO of the supplementation in our household. So now she dishes it out for everybody every day. So I have a ton of conviction. It changed my life. It saved my life. And I feel like out of not wanting to push a product or push my belief system on you, I kind of sold it short of what you should be taking. Because then when you ask me, I'm like, well, you have to take this. When we talked about why, and you're like, why didn't you tell me this before? I was like, oh my gosh. And I know when you're here, like when we're doing a like kind of power meetings and we bring the whole team in, Melanie does a lot of team building and coaching for our company. I always have metabolism energy for you. Or Grayson or somebody will dish out, because that's just the lifestyle that we live. And that's what we do as a company. Like it's actually, we flew you in. We had this huge team meeting and it was in Colorado, and, everybody showed up and I always have everything in my pantry and we were out of probiotics. And I thought my team was going to melt down because, we looked at one team member and said, well, of course, she always rolls with them. Hey, do you have any? Can we roll you for them? Can we take them out of your suitcase? And she didn't have them and nobody had them with us. And it was like this state of panic because we had all traveled and stuff. So it's sometimes hard when it's right in front of your face to always, make sure that you're an advocate for that. But yes, I am a diehard supplement taker myself. It's been life-saving. And as I love you and the work that you've done for us, I'm glad that you were candid about that conversation. But I will tell you, I stepped away and I made a phone call and I said, I feel like a huge epic failure right now because I forgot to tell you something that is kind of foundational.
Well, I think what was so interesting was why bother with anything else until you do this? And I think the other thing that I just realized, I couldn't remember the fifth thing. It was enzymes. And I actually have a question for you about that. So do I just take them every day in the morning? Do I take them when I'm eating a food that I don't think I digest well? How do I use enzymes? That one's the one I still don't get. The other four, I can see just taking on a regular basis, and I've been doing that. But the enzymes I've tended to use, I kind of have a corn intolerance, and I've tended to use them when I eat corn or wheat or, feel like I might get some kind of heartburn. I haven't used them, but I'd love to know your thoughts on them.
Right. So enzymes are critical in life, right? They activate every one of our sex hormones. They regulate every anti-inflammatory hormone. They take macromolecules like protein and break them down into micromolecules or micronutrients like amino acids. So we'll use the boys, for example, if they're trying to lay down lean muscle or when we were developing the boys and I was saying we need 120 to 140 grams of protein at that point, you have to be able to take that protein and convert it into a bioavailable substance. There's that with enzymes, right? They help you break down food. They help you recognize and realize in your body the nutrients that you're putting in. So if you're like your family, investing financially in organic fruits and vegetables, organic meats, organic even dairy products, you might as well leave them on your counter to rot if you cannot break them down and allow them to become small enough to permeate into the bloodstream and taken up into the cell to do the magic that they're designed to do, right? So the chemicals, being organic, takes the chemicals off the table so that your body doesn't have the burden of processing those also. But the body must process even organic food in a healthful way in order to get it down to nutrients. So again, there's that breaking down of the food. There's enzymes are the lock and key that activate all your hormones. So individuals, and we can talk about inflammatory hormones or we can talk about sex hormones, right? Sex hormones, we can produce estrogens, but if we don't metabolize them effectively, they won't bind to the receptor sites and make the magic happen. So for example, we have a lot of people that write in about vaginal dryness and they go in and they have their estrogen levels taken and they're normal, but their vitamin D levels are low, which is always an indicator to me that they're not metabolizing their estrogen. So what they're checking in their blood, and they say, yeah, but I have all the symptoms of estrogen deficiency. We can add an enzyme in and allow the body to metabolize that. And they recognize the plumpness in the tissue, vaginally in your face and all of those things that are beneficial when your body's utilizing estrogen efficiently. Same thing with testosterone, right? We have individuals that say, I go in, I have my testosterone level checked, it's normal, it's stable, but I'm still soft or I'm not carving up or etching real efficiently. The enzymes will add in. So they make the magic happen in the body. They make the magic happen in your food. And then the other thing that's really important with enzymes, let me just give one little caveat here. If you're an individual or there's an individual that has consumed foods that are high in insecticides, pesticides, food coloring, one thing that those do is those, thank God, and purposefully downregulate your own enzymatic output, your own enzyme output. It's a defense mechanism in the body so that you slow the rate of those toxins and those poisons. So I get a lot of people that have had poor quality of food for a long period of time, and they crave sugar and they crave the refined carbs. And when we put in an organic or natural food, their body, they say, I've been eating super healthy, for 2, 3, 4 weeks, and I haven't lost a pound or I don't have any energy. And I say, it takes time to rebuild that enzyme output in your body. So we will supplement those people with enzymes so they can recognize and realize the natural foods more quickly, and they can also start releasing toxins that are stored as fat. Which brings me to the next benefit of enzymes. I'm sorry I didn't prep for an enzyme conversation, but it's so exciting to me. Enzymes help also break down the outer shell of the adipocytes or fat cells themselves. So they will kind of pop the fat cell and allow the fats to come out to be metabolized as energy. So whenever we store historical fat, and it's typically because of an inflammatory response, a blood sugar response, or a toxicity response, that we store more fat than we are designed to, right? Once it gets in there, it's really hard to get it out. So the enzymes can help us break that shell and allow those to be released and burned for fuel. So you asked me a simple question, which is, how do I take my enzymes? You want to take them with food when you're trying to access nutrients from your food. I take 1 to 2 with each meal. When I am working, again, a vitamin D deficiency is a huge red flag. It's one of the reasons why I refuse to sell vitamin D on my website. Love vitamin D. Think it's a cool thing. Totally agree with its immune capacities. However, when you supplement with vitamin D, you mask, you hide, you muffle your body telling you that you're not metabolizing hormones efficiently. And so people come in and they say, I have a great vitamin D level. The very first thing I ask them is, are you supplementing with it? Is there something, it's just the same with like high cholesterol and a person's on a statin drug and they say, no, my lipids are great. And I say, hold on a minute. Are you taking a statin drug that's masking that you're not able to cleave cholesterol efficiently? So I will, with a lot of my clients that are really struggling, especially if they have had poor quality food, if you're telling me you've had longevity with high quality food and you're not seeing the results in your body that you want, I would first start between meals so that it's in the bloodstream and it goes into the bloodstream more rapidly and it doesn't get busy breaking down your food. I would then incorporate it with meals once you've added that level or that layer in. And I do have some clients that take it both. So they'll take 2 with a large meal and 1 between meals. But, people say if there was only one thing to take, I would say I need, ideally there's 6, but I need 2 to 3. Like, especially right now, and I don't know when people will be listening to this, and this has been a pervasive problem, but it's so heightened right now. We're using disinfectants like crazy. And we need to be. People are concerned. There's a viral outbreak. They need to be concerned about that. What we forget is that those will annihilate our good flora also, which is our first line of defense immune-wise. So we need to all be very conscientious about taking a probiotic. And I always say a trick with probiotics is it's got to be in a blister pack. The process, it really guarantees the effectiveness of it. And with an enzyme, it's the one thing that it's really hard to get. If you have a vegan formula enzyme and doesn't have a glandular piece, it's really hard to get it to re-engage your enzyme output. So those are kind of things that you want to look for when you look at those. And then, a high quality multi with methylated Bs, because the quicker we can get the micronutrients delivered to the body in the most bioavailable form, the quicker we're going to be able to heal a broken metabolism or take it to the next level, like with the boys.
And would you have the boys take an enzyme as well?
So, one of the things
I keep asking the same question.
I love it.
Like, really? We all take it?
No. So, if you're using a lot of fresh herbs and spices, if you use organic organ meat, so if you are an individual that consumes organic liver, again, make sure that those are organic and that you're using a lot of fresh herbs and spices. And we do some tests in the office, but when I find somebody and you've had very little dental work, let me put that on the mix too. We see individuals that have had things like root canals or a lot of extractions and braces that have not done bite restoration. So things like cranial sacral, things like orthodontic dentistry, where they really ensure that the bite is correct. We see a lot of benefit and pivot in a person's metabolism with the addition of enzymes. So I've been in clinical practice for 26 years now, I don't know, something like that. And when a person does well not on enzymes, I go, okay, talk to me. And those are the people that they're like, I don't have fillings. I either didn't have braces or I didn't have to have extraction during braces. I definitely don't have a root canal. all of those things are stressors, that really alter the enzyme secretion that we naturally have in our body. And if those things have happened and you pull those things forward in your life, it is very normal to see that a person needs that support on a daily basis.
Okay, I'm going to stop asking the same question.
No, ask what it. No, please.
No, it's just for the boys.
Okay, with their largest meal, I would probably do one enzyme.
Okay.
What I would do for the boys when they go back into swimming for recovery, because they're so young and they have had a long history of high quality nutrient dense foods. We're not talking about me, who's 47, who's been on, a ton of drugs and took antibiotics like they were going out of, I have to work so hard to heal and nurture. And let me say this too, as you know, and many people know, I'm dyslexic, right? So there's a philosophy in dyslexia that's called accommodating as opposed to remediating, right? So there's things that you can remediate or heal. And then there's things that you need to accommodate for. So I read at third grade, second month when I was tested in college. And then when I tested again to sit for my GREs for my master's, I'm still reading third grade, second month. I would like to move on with my life and not continue to take reading classes. I decided that at about fifth grade. I wanted to move on with my life and flourish and be successful and write books and work on my health. So part of my accommodation because of my dyslexia is that I have talk to text devices, I have readers, I have things that accommodate me to be a badass. I look at digestive enzymes in my life accommodating me to be a health badass, because I have a deficiency in my autoimmune disorder in how I process folic acid. You will have to pry my cold, dead hands off of that bottle for the rest of my life, because I want to accommodate that deficiency for myself. With kids, because it's in a glandular form, it will help them establish, they're in this growth arc. Your boys are in this growth arc. And I know they're getting tall also. So there's a lot of bone growth and development. We have a lot of our cortisol and stress hormones are actually in that long bone growth. That's why women's bone density is determined by the time we're like 25. In the male child, how they lay down muscle, how they burn fat for fuel, they're actually in that developmental stage. So I would use their digestive enzyme almost as a training process to get their body to be as successful as possible. If they ever go in for a filling, I'd probably double down on it for 30 days. In general, I would use probably one at their largest meal to tease their body and nurture their body to be the best that it can be. With them being super athletes, the one thing that you talked about was metabolism-free radicals. It is also why I push your boys to do so many fruits and vegetables, is because they are so high in antioxidants. And when you have a power athlete, or you are bone on bone with a knee replacement, or you have torn a ligament, the quicker we can repair and remodel without apoptosis, premature rupturing of the cells, the stronger that material will be. So if you are going to remodel a bone from a fracture, if you are going to remodel a micro tear in the muscle after a swim meet, and that is what happens. That is why we have the lactic acid buildup, right? The quicker you can remodel that, the stronger you will be tomorrow. So I would, what we call kind of microdose the boys after their workouts with metabolism-free radicals, 2 of them the day after their heavy workouts, and not put those in on a regular basis. Now, with someone like myself, again, who has a pro-inflammatory based autoimmune disorder, the goal for me to never go on prednisone or an anti-rejection drug again is to keep my platelets at a beautiful level and keep my body from not having too large of platelets, which are then dysfunctional. Having a super strong antioxidant from a supplemental perspective makes me have cherried labs. I don't bruise. I don't spit blood when I brush my teeth. I don't have that crisis. You've seen me go through a flare where I get the dark circles and I can bruise all over. That's a nutrient that I'm deficient in because of my health platform. So you can use those supplements both therapeutically to maximize a performance and promote a rapid healing, which is what we want for our immune system. It's what we want for our structure. But you can also use them to accommodate for a dysfunction or a disability in the immune system so that you can go on and kick ass.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay. So you're asking like the most amazing questions and I love it. And I'm excited about it. Is there anything that I've ever told you to do that was just totally crazy? I know, again, we've been through a lot, totally crazy, unorthodox, and something that even in your world of really having a lot of natural health experience and being very savvy and holistic in the holistic health world. Is there anything that you went, that's interesting?
I'm just thinking for a minute. I think some of the things that you've told me over the years, I think what I love about that access that I talked about earlier is, if I say I really am bad at taking supplements every day and you're like, well, take a few at a time. Like, if you miss a day, double up and don't take it all so seriously. I think that one's really useful. I also I know with FMD and, your diet plans, there's things that are off the table. And I think through the access that I've had, like bananas in my kids' phase 3, you don't have a vendetta against bananas.
Oh, no, not at all.
And, I've been in your home. You have bananas in your home, too.
Absolutely.
It's like they're useful. But obviously my kids who, are competitive swimmers and literally swim 7 times a week have really different needs than I do if I'm trying to lose weight and they're trying to, my kids just get thinner and thinner sometimes during the training season. They can't eat enough to keep weight on. So, their needs are really different than mine.
That's just one I just can't relate to. No.
I know. It's like painful.
Right. What about anything like in the thyroid world, anything that you would suggest to people in the thyroid world? Like we've talked a lot about T4, TSH, all of those things. Is there anything, engaging with a doctor or looking at inflammation, anything that you kind of experimented with that you felt like giving you kind of the power to just experiment with your health and having a protocol for, hey, this was a positive thing. Like, so for example, when we talk about the babies, when we talk about, we experimented with using nutrition to, when they came at 32 weeks, to really have them thrive. Is there anything that you've had in your own health experience?
Well, I think the one thing, and it's a long time ago now, but I remember, I'm sure it came from you. I can't imagine who else it would have come from. I had done a lot of estrogen as a part of fertility treatment.
Yeah.
And so a few years after the boys were born, I was just really feeling a lot of anger and frustration in a way that didn't feel normal for me. And I think that we figured out that my estrogen was just way too high in my body. Right. And I started using a wild yam cream. And right. I have this memory, and it was just something you said, go get this brand at your grocery store, or your health food store. It wasn't anything, you weren't selling me anything. It was actually just a thing. And remember, we were on our way to go wine tasting, and I rubbed some on my belly in the car after we bought it on our way out of town. And it was literally half an hour later, my husband's jokes were funny again.
Oh, yeah. No, it's that powerful when you give your body what you need. And I remember that, maybe a lot of people will even relate to this going through, menopause or something, where when the body is out of balance, our body, we talked about with the enzymes, it has to break down hormones so that they fit into the right receptor sites. And when they don't, the body secretes a lot of stress hormones. And one of the things that happens with either a blocked receptor site or something that doesn't, the wrong key for the lock, right? It doesn't fit into the receptor site, is it suppresses our endorphins, our feel-good hormones. So it's funny that you said laugh, because one of the biggest things that people say, a lot of times people can work hard through positive affirmations, through therapy, whatever, to control maybe a feeling of depression. But it's really hard to fake a feeling of joy. The feeling of joy and excitement and butterflies and that, juicy, seductive feel that we can have that comes from hormone secretion, and hormone secretion happens. It's like magnets when the receptor sites bind with the right metabolized hormone. And so when that happens, and it can happen very quickly in an instant, we've all, laughed at something or been startled by something or been excited or thrilled by something. It's a magnetism. It happens in just an instant. And so getting the right hormone balance can evoke that feeling very quickly. And that feeling of joy or lightheartedness or butterflies or like laughing at your husband's joke is a great example. So that's really cool. And something that I hope that people that are listening don't feel like they have to white knuckle it through whatever struggle they're having, that they can be in awe of their body when they're struggling, collect data. I'm like the scientist, the experiments, right? Collect data when you're struggling and share it, and don't take no for an answer, right? We're not destined to feel foggy or fatigued. We're not destined to feel angry or agitated. And I remember when you shared that with me, because you recognized that it was really out of character for you. And you recognized that a lot of the tools that you used in the past to shake off, someone running off the side of the road or whatever it is, that they just weren't igniting the change that you were wanting.
Well, and I think what's so interesting is there was a time I used it for, a few years.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was just kind of a time, and I think I saw you at the time, and I was like, it's not really, I don't have that same feeling. Like I used to feel it when I would put it on. I haven't used it in years now. But I also didn't go back to feeling that feeling of frustration. I used to grind my teeth and stuff. I was so internally frustrated. I just don't feel that way anymore. So if I had that feeling, it would be the first thing I would try. But it was kind of clear to me when it stopped feeling good, it wasn't really, I didn't really need to keep doing it. And so that was interesting too.
And you didn't go back to taking fertility meds, so you didn't,
right.
You healed from the insult. And that's something that I was telling people, it takes time to rehabilitate from an insult to the body. And as I was talking about like dental work, and I was talking about getting the boys to really nurture that enzyme output, or with you metabolizing that excess estrogen that the body wasn't able to clear, right? And I know that some of that also was, there had been, or I have clients in situations where there's been a lot of chemical exposure. So maybe the liver's not as efficient at clearing. So sometimes we have to help open those pathways too of detoxification. And that's really cool. Well, if you could ask me anything, what would you ask me? Then I have 2 more questions for you.
Okay, well, I have a question because I've been wondering if I should ask you the question, but I'll just ask you. It's probably not the best question in the world because I think I'm okay, but I'm curious. So I think that we've talked about it. I had some sleep apnea and started using a diagnosis, started using a CPAP, and now I'm sleeping. And it's been, it's almost identical to the footprint of COVID, how long I got it like right before COVID. And so I'm bouncing back. Is there anything that, like, years of sleep deprivation, is there anything that I should do at this point to shore up, to get me back to some kind of normal now that I'm actually sleeping again?
Yeah, that's a great question. And what comes to mind is body work. So with sleep apnea, and there's a lot of components to sleep apnea. There's the anatomy, physiology, the structural piece, there's potential allergies, there's immune response. I mean, the whys of that particular quote unquote syndrome, the list is very long. When we do something to remediate that, like a CPAP or some sort of device that helps the body either positionally or by the delivery of oxygen, we've got to reactivate our tissue to receive that. And so I'm a big advocate, as you know, for like dry skin brushing, for massage, for lymphatic drainage. I think passive exercise, in the sense, acupuncture would even be good too, but really I'd rather have somebody lay you down and salt scrub the heck out of you. I'm a huge acupuncture advocate, as you know. But what we need to do is we need to reactivate all of the tissue. So you're going, okay, I'm sleeping, I'm getting rest, my brain is probably feeling more clear, my adrenal glands are probably not in such distress from thinking I'm dying of suffocation several times at night. I mean, there's some repatterning that needs to happen with that. And the biggest thing that I find when we come over that arc of remediating that deficiency is getting the connective tissue in the body back in line. And that's a big one.
So interesting, because I can't get a massage, but it's like the only thing I want.
But you can do dry skin brushing.
I can do dry skin brushing. So that's a great tip.
Compresses even, a hot compress on the belly, a hot compress on the thighs, doing hot cold treatments, anything that's going to get your body to do that pump and the lymphatic and the fascia to do that pumping, that exchange of cellular respiration and cellular communication is really important.
That's great. Well, hopefully things will open up. Hopefully my massage therapist will come back from COVID soon.
Right.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you. That's super helpful and interesting to sort of think through, because I feel so much better that it's interesting to try to ask for advice around it. 'Cause, like, I don't feel like I have to nourish my adrenals in, the way that I have been for the last 5 years, probably.
Right.
Like, I don't feel depleted. I feel different, and I stay up really late. Like, I'm like awake till 1 a.m, and I haven't done that for years. Like, I was 9 o'clock girl, but I also swam in the morning.
Sleep is a good thing. Let me tell you, it's the only time that our brain detoxifies. We have a, part of the blood-brain barrier and the limbic system. Our body doesn't allow the lymphatic flushing of the brain unless we're in deep sleep. And so it's really I know it sounds so cliche, but it's just a very underestimated pillar in individuals' overall health. And one thing that you said was, it's like, I'm just going to use the example. I was diagnosed with X, Y, and Z. I got my CPAP and I'm feeling better. But there is that expectation oftentimes that when we identify the problem, and I have a client that was diagnosed with a particular infectious agent. We identified the problem, they got the counts down, and she says, I'm like 35% better, but maybe this isn't what it all was. Maybe there's something else wrong with me, and this was just one thing that we identified. And again, we were working with a lot of different docs. We were going through a lot of different diagnostics. And I said, let's play a little bit here, but maybe your body is needing the rehabilitation and the physical therapy to overcome and regenerate new tissue from this infectious disease. And I know that we clearly acknowledge that when we have a fracture and maybe we have to have orthopedic surgery, right? We get put back together. And we say, okay, rehab's going to take 6 weeks for the bone to heal, 8 weeks for connective tissue to heal, and 6 months for ligamentous repair. And so we all recognize that when it's a very defined injury. But when we haven't slept maybe for 5 years efficiently, you want to make sure that you're really intentional about the rehabilitation process of all of the side effects of not sleeping. And really say, I'm going to give myself 6 to 9 months to really focus on physiologically rehabilitating from the insult's no longer there. Like I said, with the fertility drugs, right? The insult was no longer there. We got our babies. Now, how do we cherish the positive that came from it? And how do we rehabilitate what potentially could have been collateral damage through the process?
Right.
Right. So 2 quick questions. What is your favorite fast metabolism diet meal?
What's my favorite? Well,
what's your go-to?
Oh, it's smoothies. I do one almost every day.
Okay,
but the chili's a close second. And on phase 2, it's always a steak.
Nice.
Steak never tastes as good as when I'm on FMD.
Very cool. And then my last one is, if I could take any food and Haylie would say, gosh, that's the best thing that you could ever eat. And I don't care if I had a magic wand to make anything healthy, what would it be? What do you crave?
Well, I don't crave much of anything right now because I'm really naughty on COVID. I'm not sure I'm supposed to say this on this show.
Of course.
Maybe Reese's snack mix.
Ooh, interesting. I don't even know what's in that. What is
it's
it?
Got like
cases?
It's got like little peanut butter cups and chocolate and pretzels and I don't know. It's like the perfect combination of.
So let me tell you what you're doing absolutely right with that. Okay. If you're going to engage in a sugar that's refined, always add a healthy fat.
Oh, well, there's nuts in it too. It's got nuts in it too.
And there's peanut butter in the cup. So look, one thing that I've learned in my clinical experience is that there is always a way to put power on your plate. There's always a way to make your next meal the reason that you're healthier. And it doesn't matter, guilt is fattening and stress hormones, evoke a cascade of lack of health in the body. So naughty's okay, but just make sure you're having lots of pleasure and make sure that anytime you do a refined sugar, you add that healthy fat.
Okay, I'm in.
So Melanie, I just want to thank you. And, you've been such a guiding light for me. Again, so many levels. I don't know really how to interact with individuals from a longevity perspective, whether it's a client or a business associate, and not incorporate, just the rawness of the relationship being healthy, of the body being healthy, and of nurturing the economic status of the business being healthy and nurturing that. And I'm so thrilled that after years of coaching with you, you've put a book together, because I have, as you know, referred so many people to you in the past, but now I have something tangible that I can hand out to everybody. And I appreciate you. I appreciate you for doing this with me. It was awesome and talking so candidly. And I know that, your experiences are going to uplift and inspire other people that are out there listening.
Well, I just want to share something, because I've been behind the scenes for the last literally 20 years. This is our 20th year together. And I just want to share...
Diamonds. I like diamonds.
You like diamonds? Oh, me too. But one thing I want to share is that we have never, ever, in 20 years of business coaching, had a conversation about price of ingredients in your supplements. You always are reluctant to over pitch your products. Right. But what I tell people when I refer them to you is that you have created a line of supplements that is the best line of supplements you can create that's possible. If you could create it better, you would, and you don't think about the cost as you create it. And that is a really special thing in a market that's run on margins and profit and all of those things. And so I always know that I will buy your product. With my last dollar, I will buy your product, because it's not about profit for you. It is about health. And that's one of the astounding things that I get to see from behind the scenes, is that you create the best possible products you can, both books and supplements, for your own health, essentially. I think in the back of your mind, you're always thinking, what do I need? And then you allow everyone else to buy it. And it's been such a privilege to be your coach, to watch how you do that. It's rare to have a client for so long. We're not talking about cutting costs on the back end ever. And I think it's really important that your listeners know that.
Well, thank you for saying that. And thank you for standing in my corner through that. Firsthand what I've had to really battle being in this industry and being in the supplement industry. It's a dirty, dirty, dirty business. And, when I have, in my darkest hours decided I wasn't going to give in and I was going to continue to fight the battle. I'll share this last thing. I will never forget this. You were coaching me through kind of some shortage of products and ingredients, and we had options to pivot another direction. And we had an individual that we had made some commitments to at the time. And I said, I don't care if it has my label on it. I'm not buying it. I won't buy it, and I won't use it. I won't give it to my family. And I remember them being very upset in the meeting. And they said I had no brand loyalty, even to my own brand. And I remember going, darn right. I was mad. I was fuming because I didn't have control for a brief moment in my business over what my name was or wasn't on. And, I kind of looked him square in the eye and say, I don't care what I lose. I won't do this. And I appreciate having someone in my corner because, you do get a lot of different business advice. And the biggest thing for me with all of the books and all of the nutrition plans, this is my litmus test, is, the meals that you make, are there something that you would be proud to give your grandchild a spoonful of? The nutrition plan that you prescribe to, is it something that you would be excited to hear your twin boys or your niece or your daughter exploring in their own bodies? And if that's never the answer, then you're on the wrong nutrition plan. You're not on a nutrition plan. You're potentially engaging in something that's going to be very detrimental down the road. And with the supplement perspective, if someone else can make it better, I am game. I am all in. And that's really, we hold ourselves to that as a company, and we're constantly looking and exploring and innovating. But I don't want to do this if I can't do it in a way that is going to change people's lives. And that's just kind of having an autoimmune disorder. And then, as you know, getting in a car accident where, the 911 call said I just killed her. When you go to the edge, that changes you. And it changes you in a way that I think you have conviction. Even if you don't always have backing for your conviction, you kind of just don't care. You just go, I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and I'm going to invite people along on the journey, and I'm going to share my experiences and really embrace the privilege that it is to be on this journey with you, and on this journey with all of our listeners, and on this journey with my clients and our community. So thanks for bringing that up. I appreciate it. And I will be talking to you soon.
It's been a fun 20 years. It's been a really great 20 years.
To 80 more.
There you go.
All right. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much again for doing this. Everybody's going to love it.
Bye, Haylie.
Wow, what a great interview we just had with Melanie. It was so crazy to kind of go back to all of our different experiences that we've had together. Definitely recognizing that you can turn towards nutrition and nutrients to put power on your plate. As a scientist and an individual that is in kind of a constant state of experimentation with food and micronutrients, with recipes and supplementation, I think that I recognize that the longevity and the health of our relationship has really been based on turning towards things that evoke a positive change. I want you to remember, whether you're growing babies or detoxing from fertility meds or engaging with your doctor about your thyroid, or really trying to empower your children to turn towards food and nutrition. Think about the fact that our body and everything we do with our bodies are made up of micronutrients, the activation of those micronutrients, the binding of the hormones, and all of the magic that happens when you put power on your plate.
Thank you for listening to another inspiring episode of Power on Your Plate with Haylie Pomroy. Please remember to share the amazing science and tools with someone you love. The more we know, the more we all lift our global health together. Visit www.hayliepomroy.com to get notes from today's show and to take your education and health to a new level of success and happiness.
Information on this podcast is provided for informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for the advice provided by your physician or other healthcare professional, or any information contained on or in any product label or packaging. You should not use the information on this podcast for diagnosing or treating a health problem or disease, or prescribing any medication or other treatment. You should always speak with your physician or other healthcare professional before taking any medication or nutritional, herbal, or homeopathic supplement, or adopting any treatment for a health problem. If you have or suspect that you have a medical problem, promptly contact your healthcare provider. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking professional advice because of something you've heard on this podcast. Information provided on this podcast and the use of any products or services purchased as a result of this podcast does not create any type of professional relationship between you and any of the associates affiliated with this podcast. Information and statement regarding dietary supplements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration and are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.